is gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. Now it's time for another comic book retrospective. I got the gang back together. We're going to hit Doom Patrol, something that we have not done here on the channel. I became quite enamored with the show that's on HBO Go in my house. I guess most people see it on HBO Max. And I said, Joe, we need to do Doom Patrol. Obviously, the Joe I was speaking of is Joe Corallo, award-winning comic book editor, writer. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and it just so happens that Doom Patrol, is that your favorite comic ever? It's in there. It's in the top 5, right?
It's up there. Definitely the Silver Age run of Doom Patrol, as well as the Silver Age Legion, are probably, as in terms of DC Silver Age stuff, are at the top for me. So yeah,
absolutely. And also with us is the man so cool they call him the Breed, the comic book hoarder, the voice of the voiceless, and he's jolly and he is in the Christmas spirits. How you doing, Eric Breen?
I am just awash in Christmas spirit.
He's got his candy cane and everything. Now you wouldn't have been reading comic books when Doom Patrol came out, or at least this story in 1964. Did you discover this like in early on in your comic book reading, or did you find it late?
Honestly, no idea. It's when I just, as the years went by, I just amassed everything. So at some point, I would have gathered up these issues. I do know that unlike a lot of the stuff that I bought over the years, I actually did read these. Because
it's interesting.
These were a cut above a lot of the DC stuff that was done in those years.
Definitely.
We're going to be doing Doom Patrol 86 through 90, which released in March through October 1964. And there is a ton of stuff going on here, so we are going to get to the story in a pretty short order. But this is Arnold Drake writing, Bruno Premiani on art. And this is the very first issue, at least number 86, is when it goes from My Greatest Adventures to becoming actually the Doom Patrol series itself. We get the first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil in issue number 86. And coincidentally, that is also the exact same month that the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants is introduced in the X-Men. So we've got a lot of Brotherhoods of Evil here going on, Joe, in 1964.
Yeah, we do. And it's really interesting because Doom Patrol, since it started My Greatest Adventure, came out just a little before X-Men. And I mean, it's very, very close together. It's negligible. But over the years, Arnold Drake became more and more convinced that some of those aspects of Doom Patrol, like the Brotherhood of Evil versus the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, were taken. There was
a mole in DC that was spilling secrets over to the other side?
It was a little more like lax at the time. People were still going between companies, sometimes using aliases and things like that to do freelance work at other places. We are not here to go over that and what we feel if Stan or someone else took that. But it is important because it is something that gets brought up. So we at least want to acknowledge that it is something that has been debated, and we'll probably never know the real story, at least until everyone's gone and someone finds a memo or something. But it's probably never going to truly be resolved, but it is out there.
Very interesting stuff. So, Breen, on this iteration of Doom Patrol, we've got Chief, Elastigirl, Negative Man, and Robot Man. There have been different iterations of the team over time. What's your thought on this lineup? Is this the best lineup, or is it just one of the best?
For me, the first is always the best when it comes to these old character teams, with the possible exception of the X-Men. This was just an interesting dynamic. The guy that you had the pretty girl, the guy that was in love with her, and that she was kind of in love with him. The other guy that the only tether to humanity still had was his brain, who knew there's nothing he could do, no matter how he felt about her. And then the Chief, so it was, and of course the Negative Man, when we find out in the storyline why he was afraid to take his bandages off in front of Rita. So that's it. That's it. This team worked for me. That's
absolutely. All right, Joe. So what's going on in March 1964 besides the evil or the Brotherhood of Evil and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants being introduced? Or anything else of note we should know about before we get into this story?
There's a couple of things. I think one of the bigger ones is a little comic called Avengers had its 4th issue come out around then, and I believe people are very familiar with the cover and the concept of that issue where Captain America
is unfrozen. Discovered.
He's unfrozen and comes back to the Silver Age of comics and is drawn by, his original co-creator, Jack Kirby. So that's, of course, a really big deal. That's probably the biggest key issue that came out right around then. But there's some other stuff going on. The Fantastic Four fight that stupid alien baby. there's that. We also get in Spider-Man some of kind of memory holds villains premiering. You get the Enforcers, their first appearance. They're people have tried to bring them back over the years sometimes, but they're certainly not put on a pedestal as some of the best Spider-Man villains. I'll say that. And then what was it? There's a few other interesting things around this time. You have Legion of Superheroes. You have John Forte and Ed Hamilton doing the stories at this time, in Adventure Comics. This is when Legion was really the lead story of Adventure Comics. This is the starting of the slow march of the Legion overtaking Superboy and all of that. So that's some interesting stuff. And Arnold Drake is also doing some other comics at this time, including Challenges of the Unknown. One of the other really interesting things is that there was this comic called, the Fox and Crow. And this is more of a kid's comic that DC was putting out. When Rachel Pollack would later do her Doom Patrol run, there is a story arc where the villains are, sort of these darker interpretations of Fox and Crow as a reference to this comic that she had read when she was a kid. So that's a little interesting Easter egg with the stuff going on now that also ties back into Doom Patrol.
So I'll say this before we get into the review. I absolutely I love this story. I like superheroes and I like sci-fi. And this is absolutely both mixed in perfectly. So this is right in my wheelhouse. Yes. So when we got into this, this is my first time really reading Doom Patrol. Fell in love with the story. I really enjoyed this one. So let's get into Doom Patrol number 86, entitled The Brotherhood of Evil. And Eric Breen, the Doom Patrol themselves, do not know when Chief's birthday is, so they decided that this day will be the day that they're celebrating his birthday. And it turns out Chief is very touched because they accidentally threw him his party on his real birthday. Then we see Rita, Elastigirl, is checking in on Larry's room, the Negative Man, and he happens to have a few feelings for Eric Breen, and she's amazed that he has metal all over his walls. And then afterwards, Negative Man starts lamenting that she could never love a freak like him. Obviously, there's something going on with the bandages that has him feeling like maybe he is not worthy of her. And at the same time, we get this giant robot named Rouge, piloted by Morden, who's stealing scientific equipment, including some of Chief's inventions. So the Doom Patrol are set to capture him. Turns out Rouge is destroying a bridge. And at the same time, he ends up grabbing Larry and Cliff. And Rita ends up has to let him go in order to get her teammates back. And that's kind of the opening of the story here, Bree. What'd you think about this?
A couple things. Yes. What I liked about Doom Patrol was the same thing I liked about the old Marvel comics was it had a soap opera element to it.
Yes.
That you didn't really have in some of the other DC titles. And one of the other things, the one thing we found out very early on about the Brotherhood of Evil is when Madame Rouge brings him to meet the Brain, it doesn't feel like your comic book supervillain or like wrestling heel faction where they turn on each other at the drop of a hat. There's like a mutual respect for between Mortem, say his name was, and that's the Brain, and you don't, that's something else you didn't really get in those days, or hell, even 10, 15 years later. Is it just felt a little bit different? Like there's more to this story than your cookie cutter comic book story.
Yeah.
As Eric is alluding to there, we have Madame, I thought it was Rogue, but I guess Rouge makes more sense. She's actually in an all girls French school. She receives a call from her cousin Rouge that prompts her to excuse the class. She goes into a secret passageway. It turns out she is a member of the Brotherhood of Evil. How inclusive, Joe Corallo, that they already have a female member of the Brotherhood. And this consists of the Brain, as Eric has mentioned, which is a living brain in a jar, and yes. Monsieur Mala, a super intelligent ape, and Morden is asking for entry into the organization in exchange for Rouge. The Brain accepts the proposition, thinking that this was be a good acquisition, and sends Morden and Mala back to the U.S. to steal and ransom. And I love this, Joe. This is an awesome comic book, a villainous plot to steal the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great. Especially one of my favorite bits about it is on page 12 with Rouge basically, skiing on those two giant boats. It's so good. But yeah, Bruno Premiani, his art is so fantastic. He's one of like the unsung heroes, I feel, of the Silver Age, and in a lot of ways was kind of like a real hero in terms of being an artist, because he was an Italian artist who had to flee Italy because of political cartoons he did that criticized Mussolini. So he is someone,
I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the way he did like things like The Brain, it feels very like 50s atomic age sci-fi movie.
Yes, I love it.
And then, and Monsieur Mala there, it's like, he really like makes him look like this sort of like he doesn't fit, but in a way that works, it's like, my God, there's like actually this big ape communicating with like people, and it's just all of that detail, and just all the fun. I mean, Rouge was so interesting of a design in the show. At one point when you see Rouge, it's the exact design from this comic.
Absolutely. So that was, I love the idea behind the scheme. I'm fully invested at this point, Eric Breen, because we see the Doom Patrol intervene and try to prevent Rouge from stealing Lady Liberty as they're going into their little to do there as they're fighting. Robot Man notices that there is in fact a giant gorilla inside the robot, and soon he jumps out. He attacks him during the brawl. Rita actually is able to find an opportunity to put Rouge down for good. She disables the robot. Unfortunately, Mala and Morden are able to escape after they tell the Doom Patrol that the Statue of Liberty is in fact rigged with explosives. It turns out they were fake explosives. They were duds. They weren't going to blow anything up, Eric Breen. But later, Chief starts warning, and this is laying some groundwork for some future story here, Larry, that he's pushing his luck, keeping his negative man out of body for too long. And then we could see some negative repercussions. And then we also see that Rita tells him that she wouldn't know what to do if he were to actually die. Like, she would be beside herself. And then we see Larry kind of remove himself from the situation. He starts removing his bandages, and he believes that Rita, if she ever saw him for who he truly was, wouldn't even care about it, Breen. He's got some self-esteem issues.
And like I said, this was the most Marvel ending you could ask for in a DC comic. When you've got one of the heroes, just awash in self-pity. I've used to wash twice in this video. It just going, oh, if she sees me as I really am, she'll. And he said, run for her life. I said, like I said, going back, you're reading this. Like I said, I'll take this stuff all day long. I said,
I want villains that want to steal the Eiffel Tower. I want a villain that wants to shrink the Great Wall of China. I think this stuff is great.
Why can't they just rob a bank?
Yes, this is so much
Zach
more
was
fun. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, my goodness, there's so many things that could cause stakes. Like, we can't lose. We'll lose our national identity if we lose a Great Wall of China. You can't take that away. We got to go save it.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this stuff in like cartoons and stuff when I was a kid. It was always just like intoxicating. It drives you right in. You learn about other cultures, Bree.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, if you want to really get me excited about a comic book, try and steal the Statue of Liberty. That's how you do it. And that will bring us into Doom Patrol number 87, The Terrible Secret of Negative Man. We're finally going to find what's beyond the bandages, as we see there's an airplane carrying a French actress named Mademoiselle Soulet, and it's crashing after the pilot has suffered a heart attack, and the plane is almost out of fuel. We're double barrel as far as devastation here, Joe. But the Doom Patrol arrived. They saved the plane, and Soulet asked Larry to accompany her, which makes Rita very jealous because little do they know, they actually like each other. They just haven't told each other yet. And Soulet, it turns out, is really Madame Rouge from the Brotherhood of Evil, and she plans to manipulate and use the Negative Man powers. Soulet ends up taking Larry to an abandoned 1950s World Fairgrounds and tells him her father was a famous inventor and that all of his patents were destroyed, and the only surviving copies are buried somewhere on the fairgrounds. And she asked Larry to use his Negative Man abilities to take a picture of the invention so she could secure the patents and secure the family legacy. And of course he's going to do it because he's smitten. No, girls don't ever like Larry because he's covered in bandages.
Exactly. And there's something just so, again, like there's a magic that Bruno has to all of this. They really adds to it. Like on pages 3 and 4, like on 3 there with Elastigirl running, as a giant chasing that plane. And then when she grabs the plane, all of that, like there's just something about it where it's just like, this is like great. And just the way he does it, like it really, the way he animates it, the line work, just the motion lines and everything, you really get that feeling that Elastigirl's this giant woman who's grabbing a moving plane and trying to stop it.
Whoever the Miss Marvel artist is should go and study this to see how to make those powers look cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It looks
and I don't mean that
good
facetiously.
Here.
No,
I understand. Yeah.
If I can throw some in real quick, what you're just talking about, that particular scene where Rita catches the plane, and the guys, one of the people on the plane said, it's a good thing she was moving, otherwise it would have been like hitting a brick wall. It's weaved into the story, whereas other DC comics at the time, like The Flash would say, flash fact, what happens here is they would do this like, childish scientific explanation for Mary Allen, who is secretly the Flash, would catch it. So this also, you can tell this book aimed a little older than your regular DC book. Also, it's like more in line with the science fiction division of the company.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it was a hot open, as we call it in the wrestling biz, Breed. And it turns out that this device is a machine that can increase the size of small objects, and that is what, in fact, the Brotherhood of Evil are seeking to collect and then replicate. It turns out, mission accomplished. Madame Rouge has joined with Mala and the Brain to reconstruct this ray. And Rita, along the way, discovers this evil plan, Breed, and she decides to expose Soulet's real identity and intentions to Larry. Turns out Rita ends up being captured by the Brotherhood, and Larry is forced to do their bidding anyway. And what I love this plan too, these are all All these villainous plans are right out of my playbook, Breed. They put little toy soldiers and little toy tanks all around the Federal Reserve, and then they're gonna shoot with the raid and blow them up to the size of real people in tanks, and then they're gonna control these automatons and use them to break into the Federal Reserve to steal what? Gold. Man, remember when everyone wanted to steal gold, Breed?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. No, one of the things, again, you're saying how Larry goes along with it because, he's not used to having women smitten over him. But we find out that it was a ploy, and Rita screwed it up because he had it worked out with the chief because he was on tour from the beginning. And in one of the most innocent Silver Age lines that could be misconstrued later, when she goes, "Oh, did I pull a boner?"
Oh yeah,
absolutely. As Breed is alluding to. I'm sorry, Breed. What were you saying?
No, I said if Larry's next thought balloon, not yet, but maybe.
Very sexy. As Breed is alluding to there, Chief is up telling Robot Man he's been skeptical of Mademoiselle Soleil from the very start and had Larry playing along to see what the plans were. He ends up sending Robot Man to free the friends, and then we end up seeing Larry and Rita are freed. But after the gold has already been stolen, Joe Corallo, and Larry realizes there's only one way that he's going to be able to stop this army of toy soldiers and tanks. He removes the bandages, and he reveals that he is completely and utterly radioactive. He's able to use these powers to deactivate all the toy soldiers and tanks that have been operated remotely. There's one tank that was being operated manually and is unaffected. Robot Man is able to save Larry kind of at the last second as things were not looking good for him. And at that time, Madame Rouge tries to gas bomb Robot Man. Obviously, that is not going to work because he's a brain inside of a robot, and he is able to take her and her cohort in. And we later learn that this ray was effective. It certainly blew things up, but anything that it was used on was going to decompose eventually anyway, Joe.
Yeah, and the way that Bruno illustrates and shows us Larry with the radiation there when he takes it off is like the skull and like seeing his teeth. He does such a great job at something. And another artist, someone else could have done a great job too. Don't get me wrong. There were a lot of great artists around now, but the way he chose to do it is so haunting. And it's just perfect how that's handled. And the little spat that Robot Man and the Chief have in that one panel on page 13. Larry, you gave him an assignment without telling Rita and me. What's going on, Chief? I can't explain now. Get over there, Cliff. And they're having that little fight. And this is their dynamic that really sticks. And I mean, anyone who watches the show would also feel this is a familiar dynamic of this is like the Chief. He plays stuff close to the vest. He's not always forthcoming, and that character trait and those character dynamics were so good, going on close to 60 years ago, that's still the template they're using with the characters to this day.
Absolutely. And do you think that was it's Gibbons that did Watchmen, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You think he had to have read this before he was illustrating that? There's some, it's not similar, but you can see that he maybe was inspired by that when he does the transformation of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. I mean, this was while it was briefly successful, on the newsstands, and then faded. It got all the way down to that cancellation level of only selling 250,000 copies a month. So I mean, this was beloved by a lot of people in the business, so much so that Marv Wolfman and George Perez brought them back in the Teen Titans. Not the whole team, but, you know, brought back elements, used the Brotherhood of Evil. A lot of people who might be listening to this right now maybe are more familiar with Doom Patrol from the early 2000s Teen Titans cartoon. You know, so I mean, there were people and big influential people in the business who were really inspired by this comic. So I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
Absolutely.
There's a little thing here, on page 15. You know, Larry's revealed his deep, dark secret. And when Cliff comes over to save him, just the line, "Out of the way, shiny face. This is a job for a tin man." Just the familiarity of what he calls him and the self-deprecating humor himself, because I mean, they're Larry's calling him a walking sardine can. He's calling him, there's so many things. And I'm beating a dead horse here. There's so many things about Doom Patrol that was just better than just about everything else that was being done in comics. I mean, this is a hidden gem because a lot of people don't know about this.
Yeah.
He was doing X-Men before Uncanny X-Men got great. He was doing it better as far as freaks, like outcasts and whatnot, being forced out there and to save the very people that are kind of treating them poorly.
Well, it is a different dynamic, but this one really does work because you really do. I mean, you get to really care about these four individuals.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, that'll get us into Doom Patrol 88, the incredible origin of the Chief. And we get a lot of details here, Eric Breen. I'm going to be talking for a while because we get the introduction to the story and then we get the Chief's origin. So we have Baron, who's a new braggadocious criminal who's been pulling off fantastic capers left and right. He's robbed a casino that was aboard a cruise ship. He's been stealing armored cars using planes, and he has said that he plans on hitting a jewelry store next. The Chief theorizes that Baron will end up digging into the store from underneath. The Doom Patrol arrive. There's a little bit of red tape. They finally get onto the scene. They are too late to stop the theft. The jewelry store has already been robbed. But the Chief believes that this Baron fellow is actually a character named General Immortus, in disguise, and decides to tell the Doom Patrol of his origin. As a young scientist named Niles Calder, he was pursuing his education in the sciences, even to his own financial ruin. He eventually was paid $2 million to cheat death, and he was able to create a ray that would bring dead things back to life. Eventually, he became curious and learned that his employer was, in fact, the evil General Immortus. General Immortus demanded the secrets to Calder's ray. Chief refused. Eventually, Immortus placed a bomb in his chest that he could detonate at any time. Calder was able to confront Immortus at one time and basically forced him to shoot him so he'd think that he was dead. And he was able to return to his lab. His robot assistant, RA2, removed the bomb, used the ray to resurrect him, and then he destroyed any notes that he destroyed the device, and he even destroyed his robot so that this device could never get into the wrong hands, Breen. What a fantastic origin.
Indeed it was. Now, I was a little troubled by the end when he, and like I said, when he fixed him, that's when he lost the use of his legs. And so, and then, he ordered the robot to destroy everything. But when the panel where he's just like looking away and blowing the head off of his robot, and I'm thinking, it had to be done, but man, that's kind of a dick move because this is so well written that you feel like the robot has, I don't want to say sentience, but it seems to have a personality.
Yeah,
at least that's the way it's written. And then it's just like, man, couldn't you have maybe found some other way to, I don't know.
Does this lay the seeds for future character progression on Chief, where maybe when push comes to shove, he's gonna, sacrifice some people along the way if he has to.
So couldn't have sent him into Belize like Walter White used to do? I mean,
Yeah, but no, it's definitely some great character work that we do see the Chief continue to develop as this character. And it kind of builds on in the previous issue of like, I'm not going to tell every member of the team everything. It's on a need to know basis. And so you see the Chief be this, like, while he is this like caring person who wants to do the right thing, he's still willing to do more than a lot of other people to do said right thing. And again, just the artistry here. I mean, like, page 6, just all the bits with Negative Man, having him come out, fly down, stop him. And then I love this panel on page 7 with, Rita's giant hand coming down to grab them. You get that. And then probably one of the best little bits in this particular story is that like 2/3 page splash on page 13 where the Chief crashes through the window to General Immortus. It's gorgeous. And I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into it, but the way it's done, it almost feels like it's done to intentionally foreshadow the loss of his legs, because if you look in that panel, the legs are very much sticking out, and they've got the blue background. So they're popping out a little more to kind of add a little extra focus to them. So I don't know if it was intentionally done that way or not, but either way, it really stands out.
Absolutely. As we also get little bitty bits of the origins of the other characters prior to this, but this was absolutely a lot of information about the character. I imagine a lot of big reveals, and it definitely lets you know that the Chief is somebody that will do things that maybe you don't agree with along the way. And then we do see that Doom Patrol, after learning the origin, moved to stop Baron's next heist at the Black Cat Casino. Baron, it turns out, Joe, is prepared with special traps for the Doom Patrol, and through Robot Man's remote camera, Baron reveals to Chief that he is, in fact, General Immortus. He was correct. He demands the signets to Resurrection Machine in exchange for Chief's team. Chief arrives at the scene with a special device to free the Doom Patrol. After the members are freed, they go and they chase General Immortus, who attempts to flee by train, which I thought was fantastic. Thank you. Please flee by locomotive more often. And it appears by the end, Joe, that Immortus has died. There's been a rocket. There was an intervention. But Chief believes that he's actually escaped the team and that they'll be ready for General Immortus the next time they meet again.
Yeah, it's a great way to wrap that up. And again, like, Bruno's just like firing on all cylinders. Like that page 17 showing, Negative Man getting caught in that ray, and he looks all like crackled. He looks like, like personified Kirby Crackle at that point. And then, like the Robot Man in chains, and that whole panel there on 22 where he's melting the chains. It's like melting part of Robot Man. It's just gorgeous. and yeah, the bit again, they do the way Arnold Drake crafts a story. He always works it in to do something with Elastigirl where she gets really tall or shrinks and stuff to do something. The whole bit with grabbing the locomotive, and it's a good thing that boner line isn't here. But
I was going to say, you could read so much into these two
Look at the way she's holding it. She's a pro.
Yeah. No, she is a professional. But no, it's just, and then even with the rocket, like with Larry as Negative Man wrapped around the rocket, just like he wrapped around the glass for Rog, so Morgan couldn't look through. I mean, these are inventive characters, and they do interesting things, and they work it seamlessly into the story. It never feels like they just have Elastigirl get really tall or shrink just for the sake of it. It's always in action. There are things that need to happen. And, poor Robot Man is getting demolished in some way or another, like every other issue, and needs to be repaired. But, it's just great.
Absolutely. Speaking of great, this gets us into Doom Patrol 89. I've been wanting to talk about this. This one's called The Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Menace. And this thing, Brain, has one of the best covers. You'll never see anything this cool ever again. And at the top it says, the world's strangest heroes battle a triple threat, 3 villains in one, the man who becomes the animal, vegetable, mineral menace. It's so ridiculous you have to love it, Brain.
Well, somewhere in editorial I said, my God, we haven't put any dinosaurs on our Doom Patrol covers. We got to fix that.
And give him a diamond arm.
They said that's
a tree truck leg.
And the little kids that may not have been old enough to read yet might have thought they were grabbing Star Spangled War. So they just,
comic books are supposed to be ridiculous. They're supposed to be fun, Breen. I love this.
Whatever happened to those days?
Exactly. It's like, I want to see.
There's a cloud. Damn it.
Some people would, this is a great little side adventure before we finally finish up with the Brotherhood of Evil. But we get this I'm sorry, you're saying, Breen?
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad you touched on that, because that was another thing about this book. You're taking a break from we interrupt your regularly scheduled epic or arc to bring you this. Something else you did not see. And hell, even Marvel Comics at the time. So this was, again, that's another couple points in favor for this particular book.
Yeah, I love a little side adventure. This will we get biologist Sven Larsson, a former student of Chief's, invites the Doom Patrol to witness one of his experiments. It turns out that Sven once held a grudge against Chief, believing that he had stolen one of his ideas, but apparently he has buried the hatchet, and we see that Larsson is attempting to create life from nothing, but becomes a victim of his own experiment, Breed, as he falls into a vat of chemicals, turning him into a giant amoeba. Yes, a giant amoeba. And the Doom Patrol try to stop the rampaging amoeba as they learned that it can change into any form that it desires. It is out maneuvering the team at every turn and finally escapes, at least the initial confrontation there, Breed. I need more giant amoebas in my life.
That's right. But remember, things are not always what they seem.
Absolutely. This is just the introduction. We're going to have some clarity on this, but I love little side adventure, one shot kind of things like this. They're fun adventures. Usually you get to highlight something about a character here and there, and this is great stuff, right? This is what comic books are.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't this the debut of the new costumes?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's right. Oh, and and I got to bring up a little, Silver Age sexism. They made the girl design the new costumes. Because, in the Bronze Age, it was the Beast that made Wonder Man's new costume. So, but back then, now it's
but
it's really cool though. Like I said, the scene when the tree's about to choke her out, and the Chief gives her the shrink down now. That's just fun.
And that panel with Rita, there are multiple panels in here I didn't point out, but throughout all of these, every issue seems to have at least a couple of panels where Bruno really has great facial expressions for Rita, just close in panels of that, and it's so good. He really does great work with that at a time where there were a lot of times where facial expressions are kind of hey, we got to get this comic out. Can't do too much intricate little line work on a facial expression, but yeah, it really stands out.
All right, Joe. We do see afterwards, after they lost the amoeba, the Doom Patrol study Larsson's notes, trying to figure out what happened. They learned this is no accident, as Breen alluded to earlier. He did this months prior to this event, and he's been planning this accident in a bizarre revenge scheme against Chief. But during the next battle, the animal, vegetable, mineral man has to drop on the Doom Patrol, and at that time, Chief discovers a way to defeat the animal, vegetable, mineral man, the very device that Sven claimed that he stole in the very beginning, a machine that can freeze living creatures. The only problem is, Joe, that he will need to assume the form of a plant or an animal, so the Doom Patrol attack, tricking him into turning into a tiger, eventually freezing him. And because the Doom Patrol are good guys, they end up using Larson's notes to essentially reverse engineer or undo the process before turning him over to authorities for psychiatric help and ending our little side adventure before we get back to the main quest. Perfect storytelling. This is how you do a one-shot. That is a perfect story, beginning, middle, end. You got it in one comic, in one issue. This would be a 3-issue miniseries, at least nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. And some of this, again, this is some of the best work from Bruno in these issues that we're going over. Page 13. How haunting is that the train spider, in the clutches of the giant spider, and then Rita growing to grab the giant spider, and then the spider turning into like a cloud of gnats. I mean, just the pure imagination and just like the terror. I mean, I could imagine a little kid picking this up and looking at that one panel with the spider getting the train and just like having a hard time going to sleep that night. I mean, it's really good stuff.
Yeah. I hate spiders. Nobody probably know. I don't think I've ever said this on the channel, but I'm absolutely petrified of spiders, let alone enormous spiders that are big enough to attack trains.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people would be afraid of a spider large enough to attack a train.
Not Breen.
I think that's fair.
He's the Man of Steel.
Oddly enough, one of the few things I'm not afraid of are spiders, but that would probably do it. I mean, I'm not moved to Australia not afraid of spiders, but by and large, I'm okay with them.
Yeah, when the spider's big enough to like attack a small dog, I'm like, I'm out. I'm good. That's
or like when they look in that one video where the girls looks in one corner of a room and there's like 30 spiders up there, and they're like, what's the big deal? Then they turn the camera over to the other side of the room. There's like 300 of them. No, thanks.
Oh,
yeah,
but nah, you guys are trying to give me the willies. Let's get into Doom Patrol 90, the final issue of this 5-issue story arc that we're talking about here. The enemy within the Doom Patrol. And we see that the Doom Patrol are relaxed during some rare downtime, Eric Breen. But unbeknownst to them, the Brotherhood of Evil are planning to destroy the Doom Patrol and the entire world. Dun, dun, dun. We've got Madame Rouge undergoes an experiment developed by the brain and gains the ability to mold her skin into any shape imaginable, and she is sent to infiltrate the team. We see that the Doom Patrol have been pushed forward to fix a dam that is broken. Madame Rouge disguises herself as Elastigirl, and when she gets Robot Man alone, she throws him into the dam and then disappears, sowing the seeds for doubt as far as what's going on with the team. The real Elastigirl finally arrives. She and Negative Man are concerned for Cliff. They end up rescuing Robot Man and fixing the dam, but Chief has determined that the team may have a traitor in their midst, and they need to be cautious of what's going on. Then they are called out to rescue some miners. They send Robot Man in to investigate. He's attacked once again by Madame Rouge. She buries him under an enormous pile of rubble and disguises herself as the living robot. And she tries to kill Negative Man and Elastigirl by dropping an elevator on him. And then Madame Rouge escapes as Larry and Rita save the miners and free Robot Man. So she's playing these guys for fools. She's trying to kill them. She's successfully infiltrated the team, Breen, and they don't know what the hell's going on.
Couple things. Since this book was a little more subtle than others, also when Madame Rouge as Elastigirl arrives on the scene, in just one line of dialogue, the miner happens to notice, goes, "Well, I don't know what happened to that sweet disposition you had earlier today." So without coming right out and saying it, because I said if this were Superman or Flash, it said, "And Madame Rouge, who is secretly not Elastigirl," and can we talk about just how creepy page 11 is when she's still dressed as Elastigirl but putting on Robot Man's face?
Yes. No, that's
a bit unsettling.
Oh my God. Yeah. And also at this time, he started doing some of the covers prior, but Bob Brown really at this point is just doing all the covers in the book. With a few exceptions, Bruno would do covers here and there. Bob Brown was one of the artists on Avengers, was the artist in Avengers Defenders War, drawing those issues. He's a very underrated artist. He was doing the interiors at the time for Challengers of the Unknown that Arnold Drake was drawing. And I think I made that reference the last time we talked Avengers Defenders War, that Bob Brown would come in and be the artist that worked on something, sometime after Jack Kirby worked on it. So, it is interesting. He does incredible covers. But yeah, just wanted to make sure we highlighted that. And just, again, these like close-ups of like faces, like Madame Rouge. You don't need any dialogue there.
Pure evil.
Pure evil, just from the panel work and just the artistry. She's the villain. Like that's there's an art to that.
Absolutely. So this will bring us into the finale of this story. And Chief, being a smart man, decides to accompany the team on their next mission, and he has established passwords so that they can assure the identity of their teammates and know who's who during this next mission. Turns out there's a ship full of explosive chemicals that has caught fire. Chief orders Larry to send out the negative man to help stop the blaze. At the same time, Madame Rouge disguises herself as Larry and drags his unconscious body away. And she tries to kill him with a gun, but it turns out there's a catch, Joe. She can't kill anyone whose form she's currently taking because her conscience won't let her attempt to kill something that she feels like she's at that moment. It was strange, but it made sense to me within the story. So Brain instructs her to actually replace the Chief, and then we we see the Doom Patrol arrive at the ship, and Larry pretends to have forgotten his password, allows him to get close enough to Chief to give him a knuckle sandwich before the Chief can actually shoot any of the members of the team. Madame Rouge's cover is blown, but she does manage to escape before they capture her. And then the Doom Patrol end up recovering the real Chief. And meanwhile, the Brotherhood of Evil at the end of the story are planning their next attack on their foes. So they will continue to attack each other moving forward, Joe. A great way to establish a big villain team in the Brotherhood of Evil. They also established another villain to play with later in General Immortus. So many good things here, and I love the ending. It's very good.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and just these last few pages there, what is it? That panel of Rita, spinning, Madame Rouge like that. Incredible. And this page there where the Chief is all like, it's Madame Rouge, it's not actually the Chief, but, stretching the arm, transforming and all that, like to reveal herself. It gave me, flashbacks to being a kid at the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where Christopher Lloyd is revealed to be that like tune and all that, like that level of like just creepiness to it. It's just so good, so imaginative, and the series just keeps building from here. You get like some really crazy interesting things that are going afterwards, but just these stories, I mean, these alone set such a solid foundation for so many stories to tell from here.
All I can say is I was very impressed. I'm glad that I saw the show because I know that Joe he loves Doom Patrol. He's always talking about Doom Patrol. It's been on my to-do list, but I saw the show. I talked to Joe. Now that I read this, it's actually moved to the top of my to-do list. I definitely need to go back and read a lot more. Want to get make it up to maybe a Grant's run. I know that everyone says that's one of the seminal runs as far as Doom Patrol, and this is fantastic. This is all the stuff I love. It's superheroes, it's science fiction, it's cool, zany, weird Silver Age, steal the Statue of Liberty, kind of all this weird stuff that I absolutely love about comic books.
Oh no, for sure. And I think part of what makes Grant's run work later on is their sort of love for a lot of the Silver Age stuff. So you see a lot of that in there. It's obviously also very Grant, but it's very early in Grant's career. It's a little before Grant became Grant and is still working within the confines of continuity. So, you know, there are people who sometimes hear about Grant and jump right into like something like Invisibles and are turned off. And it's like, no, don't do that. Go do some of this stuff that's a little more confined where Grant's more restrained and it works a little better. But honestly, you know, and I've talked to some people, I'm not going to name names, but I've talked to some of the people who worked on Doom Patrol, you know, afterwards. And they're, you know, even some of the people that worked on the comics, you know, they'll be like, you know, the Silver Age run is the best, but don't tell anyone I said that. You know, so, you know.
It's absolutely fantastic, Bree. This is, you know, when you read something like this, does it bring you back to being a kid where you're watching or reading all these fun stories?
Yeah, I do want to point out again, one last time at the end of the story, when Madame Rouge is telling them that she failed and they assure her that she didn't. Again, This isn't your, you know, maniacal, blah, mustache twirling supervillain team. They're a group of people dedicated to, they may be wrong, but they're dedicated to what they hope to accomplish, and they actually care about each other in the same way that the Doom Patrol does. So it's not, yes, one's right and one's wrong, but the way they said these are not cookie cutter villains, just like the Doom Patrol aren't cookie cutter heroes. Yeah. And yeah, it kind of does, Wes. I said it, but again, this run, yeah, all this is done, you know, the only time anything I ordered from Amazon didn't ship, it got lost somewhere, was when I ordered volume 2 of the Doom Patrol. I'm gonna have to go get that now because I want to go all the way through again.
No, it's great. I own all the archive editions. These are out of print, but they have it in the trades. I think it's 3 trades for the Silver Age run. It's 2 or 3, but it's something like that. And then there's also an omnibus that I think is still in print that has the whole thing. So if you like, you know, to get some, you know, light lifting in while you're reading, the omnibus is sort of the way to go. But yeah, we're very lucky that these are pretty readily available. So you can definitely, you know, go check them out. A lot of these also have, you know, introductions or forwards from people like, you know, Arnold Drake, Roy Thomas, Paul Kupperberg, and people like that. So definitely go check it out. It's an incredible run. They let it kind of have an ending, even though, you know, it does come back. And there's runs after that are, you know, and certainly individual stories that are worth checking out. I don't think it's worked as well since probably, you know, the Vertigo days and stuff like that. But there's so much in just the Silver Age. Even if you just read the Silver Age run, I'm telling you, it's easily one of the single top Silver Age runs that DC Comics put out.
Also, if you're interested in Doom Patrol, if you're more you know, discovering the team, or you've read it a little bit here and there, but you don't know a ton about it. I know, Joe, you and Perch had an interview with Rachel Pollack somewhat recently.
Yeah, we talked, if you want, on Perch's channel, we did an interview with Rachel Pollack. We also did an interview with Richard Case. You know, and Paul Kupperberg, who also worked on it. You know, Perch and I are both Doom Patrol fans, so, you know, if people worked on Doom Patrol, we like to talk to them. But
so if you'd like some more behind the scenes kind of information, definitely go check those interviews out on Perch's channel, and you can also see what other people were doing with this series.
Yeah, and, you know, fun fact, in sort of that Bronze, you know, like right around, you know, Crisis, when they were relaunching the book, that was some of the earliest Eric Larson work when Paul Kupperberg was on that book. He came on a few issues in. It started with Steve Lytle, but then they got, you know, Eric Larson, and I believe Mike Gold was the first editor, on Doom Patrol, and then it was taken over by Bob Greenberger. But Mike Gold, is very well known for having not only worked at DC, but helping to found First Comics. I mean, Bob Greenberger is someone who's been involved in so much stuff at DC, and also worked at Marvel for exactly 1 year. But really interesting people got to work on this book. I own a couple of Doom Patrol pages. I have some original Doom Patrol artwork. I think it's really great. I think people really should check it out. So if this doesn't get you to check it out, I don't know it will.
Absolutely. Bree, do you have any final words about Doom Patrol?
I was going to say, once again, Joseph, another home run in the selection.
Absolutely. Next week we're doing Spider-Man.
Yeah, we're going to do the start of a brand new era. Almost 40 years ago, but new era.
Absolutely. So that should be
it's over 40 years ago. Jeez.
Definitely want to say thank you to Breen. Want to say thank you to Joe Corallo for joining me on a very fun retrospective. I know this one went a little bit long, but I love this story, and I wasn't going to leave any of these wonderful details out.